Do you know who is Ravana?
Yeah.
Who's Ravana? Tell me.
A demon.
He's a demon. Yes, he is. Tell me a little bit more about him.
He was killed by Ram.
He was killed by Ram. Why did Ram kill him? Because he was a demon, right? But what else?
He captured Sita.
He kidnapped Sita. What a terrible thing to do. What a terrible thing to do. So this session is going to be about Ravana. You know what his name means? Ravana.
20 arms and...
No, that's what he had. But his name, Ravana, means he makes people cry. Ravana. Do you cry sometimes?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, where do you see Ravana? But don't worry, Ram will take care of him. Just take shelter of Ram. So we're going to hear two things. There's so many things. There's like many things. And I decided to just focus on a couple of things. All of them come before the kidnapping of Sita. So what Ravana did before he kidnapped Sita. And there's some really interesting parts to it. So the first section I'm just going to read because it's really nicely written, and the feedback that I've been getting is there's something about not just speaking about, but even hearing the nicely written translation of Valmiki Ramayana. So this is a kind of a pieced together, piece by piece, Valmiki Ramayana. It's addressing the birth of Ravana, and then some of the things he did after he was born. So he had 10 heads. In fact, his name, before he was named Ravana, given that name by Lord Shiva, his name was Dasha Griva. Means he had 10 heads. That was his name. So there was some question, do you have 10 heads from birth? He had 10 heads he was named Dasagriva. Just like one of the names of the Supreme Lord is Hayagriva. So 10 heads, huge fangs, look like a heap of, like a black mountain. Coppery lips, 20 arms, huge mouths, 10 of them, and hair that glowed like fire. The moment he was born, various inauspicious signs were visible. So here's something about his birth. This is I'm going to read. Long ago, on the slopes of Mount Meru, there lived a sage named Pulastya, who was a mind-born son of Brahma. You know what that means? A mind. He came directly from the mind of Brahma, Pulastya. There's different sages that came that way, and he's one of those sages that came that way, came from the mind or different parts of Brahma's body. So Pulastya, born from the mind of Brahma. He was constantly engaged in the practice of severe asceticism. Many celestial maidens would come to sport in the beautiful region where he dwelled, and they would often disturb his meditations. Finally, becoming impatient with them, he said, if any maiden should again be seen by me, she would immediately become pregnant. Ooh, so the lady stayed away. However, there was one girl, a daughter of another sage named Trinabandhu. who had not heard about the curse. She ventured into the region where Pelasgia sat, and as soon as he saw her, she found indications of pregnancy in her body. Astonished and fearful, she ran to her father and said, "Father, I cannot understand why I am suddenly appearing as if pregnant. No contact with any male has ever been had by me." Trinabandhu sat in meditation, and by mystic power he understood what had happened. He went with his daughter to Pelasgia and said to him, "O venerable sage, kindly accept my daughter as your wife. By your power she now carries a child. Please, therefore, take her hand in marriage. She will surely render you very pleasing service." Pelasgia agreed. And he said to the girl, "O gentle one, you will give birth to a highly qualified son who shall be known as Vishrava. Like his father, Vishrava became an ascetic and engaged himself in much penance and study of scripture. In due course, he married a daughter of Bharadvaja, and through her he got a son named Vaishravana, who, by the grace of his father, became the powerful Kuvera, the god of wealth. So Pelasgia, Vishrava, Vaishravana. At that time, a great battle took place between gods and the Rakshasas, who were finally put to flight by Vishnu. They sought shelter in the netherworlds, that's the Rakshasas, although one of them, Sumali, began to live on earth. As he wandered about, so he's a Rakshasa named Sumali. Remember his name because it comes up. As he wandered about, he saw one day Kuvera flying overhead in the celestial Pushpaka chariot. You know what Pushpaka is? You heard of that one?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. It's as big as a city, but it flies around like, a little airplane. And it's kind of a mystical, celestial aircraft, Pushpaka. The Rakshasa, again his name is Sumali, was astonished to see Kuvera's opulence, knowing that the god was Vishrava's son, that's Kuvera, and desiring to do good to the Rakshas, he said to his young daughter, Kaikashi, "It is high time you were wed, dear girl. Go to Vishrava's ashram and ask that he accept you. That powerful sage will give you sons equal to the Lord of riches." That's Kuvera. There is no doubt at all. So, in obedience to her father, Kaikashi went to where Vishrava was seated in meditation. She stood bashfully before him with folded palms, looking downward and scratching the earth with her toe. Seeing the girl, whose face resembled the full moon, and who shone with a celestial beauty, the sage said, "Who are you? And why are you here? Tell me the truth." The girl replied, "O sage, you should divine my purpose by your own mystic power, for I am too shy to tell you." The sage meditated for some minutes and read her mind. He then said, "I have understood your purpose, O gentle one. You desire sons by me. Surely I am attracted to you and will accept your hand, but you have approached me at an inauspicious time. You will therefore have sons who will be cruel-minded, fierce-looking, and given to evil deeds. O lady of shapely limbs, you will bring forth Rakshasas, fond of drinking blood. Uh-oh. Kashi was upset. Oh, lordly sage, I do not desire such offspring. Kindly be merciful to me. Feeling compassionate, Vishrava replied, it cannot be any other way, dear girl, but I can bless you as follows. Although you will have such sons, your last son will be different. He will be virtuous and fully in accord with my family. Guess who that was? Vibhishan. You heard of his name, Vibhishan? Yeah. So Vibhishan became one of the sons of Vishrava and Kaikashi, but the final son. In due course, the eldest son was born, a hideous child with the form of a Rakshasa. He had 10 heads, 20 hands, and was the color of coal. When he was born, many inauspicious items were seen. Animals emitted flames from their mouths, blood fell from the sky, meteors dropped down, and clouds thundered fiercely. The earth rocked with its load of mountains, and the sea roared and sent up huge waves. Vishrava named the child Dashagriva, and he grew up fearful and cruel. Next, Kaikashi gave birth to Kumbhakarna, then Shurpanakha, and finally Vibhishana. So there's 4. We discussed this previously. There are versions within Ramayana that there's 6, Dushan and Kara, but here it's identified as 4. When the last child was born, flowers fell from the sky, and the gods of heaven were heard to utter, good, excellent. Sometime after their birth, Kuvera came on the Pushpaka to see his father. Seeing him blazing with glory and opulence, Kaikashi said to Dashagriva, so the mother, his wife, Vishrava's wife, said to her eldest son, Dashagriva, son, look here at your brother, Vaishravana. Look at yourself in comparison, so poor and lacking in power. Exert yourself so that you are the equal of your brother in every way. Spurred on by his mother's words, Dashagriva said, I swear to you that I shall rise equal to Vaishravana and even excel him in power. Do not grieve. In a mood of envy for his brother and greed for power, Dashagriva engaged himself in severe austerities for a very long time. In the end, he won his famous boons from Brahma, being blessed that he could not be slain by any creature other than a man or lesser animal for whom he had no regard whatsoever. Along with Dashagriva, both Kumbhakarna and Vibhishan also engaged themselves in asceticism. When Brahma appeared before them, listen to this, Vibhishan asked for the boon that his mind would always remain fixed in righteousness, even when he was in the greatest difficulty. Brahma granted his request, and then turned to Kumbhakarna. Guess what Kumbhakarna wanted? At that time, the gods became greatly fearful, and they approached Brahma, saying, "O Lord, no boon at all should be granted by you to this one. He has already wrought havoc in the heavens, devouring 7 apsaras, 10 attendants of the mighty Indra, as well as numerous rishis and human beings. What will he do if made powerful by a boon from yourself? On the pretext of granting a boon, you should instead place him under the spell of delusion, thereby saving all the worlds from him. Brahma smiled and said, so be it. He thought of the goddess of learning Saraswati, and when she appeared before him, he said to her, O goddess, become the speech in Kumbhakarna's mouth. The goddess agreed. And Brahma then again asked Kumbhakarna, what boon do you desire, O Rakshasa? Kumbhakarna, weary from his austerities, replied, let me sleep for many years. It shall be so. You will sleep for 6 months at a time and remain awake for 1 day. Having made his reply, Brahma vanished along with all the gods. After receiving his boon, Dashagriva, who became known as Ravana, considered himself invincible. He went to Lanka, where Kuvera lived, and challenged his brother. On the advice of their father, Vishrava, Kuvera left the city, and it was taken over by Ravana and his hordes of Rakshasa followers. So Lanka had been previously gifted by his father by the creation of the celestial architect, Vishwakarma, made of gold, etc., etc., and Kuvera was like his summer home or something. And Ravana usurped it because he said, he's invincible, don't try to fight him. He has this boon from Brahma, just give him Lanka. So he did. Now here's a very interesting story of how Sita was born. It's connected to Ravana. The daughter of King Janaka, who became Rama's wife, was born as described in Vedic literature as follows. This is from Devi Bhagavat. There was once a great rishi named Kushadvaja, great rishi, who had a daughter named Vedavati, who was said to be an incarnation of the goddess Lakshmi. Kushadvaja was petitioned by various celestials and demons for his daughter's hand, but she had set her mind on getting Vishnu only as her husband. One day, a demon named Shambhu asked for Vedavati's hand in marriage, but he was refused. Becoming furious, he attacked and killed Kushadvaja. Now that was at night, right? When he was asleep. When Vedavati saw this, she looked in anger at the demon, and he was immediately burned to ashes. She then went to the forest and began to meditate in order to propitiate Vishnu and get him as her husband. It was at that time that Ravana came there and insulted her. You know the story. I can narrate the story briefly. He has the Pushpaka Vimana from Kuvera. He challenged him and got the Pushpaka Vimana. So he's traveling around the universe, challenging everybody. We'll hear some more about that's next, coming attractions. So he had, one of the places he visited was a mountainside where down below he saw a beautiful celestial looking woman. His Pushpaka Vimana came in for a landing, and he said, things that demons say to ladies. And please tell me who you are, what you're doing in the forest, why asceticism, you should be fit to marry me, woo, woo, woo. And she described that she's the daughter of Kushadvaja, and In Valmiki Ramayana, she says that she's Vedas personified. Here it says, this is Devi Bhagavad, she's Lakshmi personified. And he didn't take no for an answer, and he grabbed her hair. She gave him a judo chop. With one swoop of her hand, she cut off her hair and said, because you've touched me, I'm going to give up my body. But then she uttered a curse. When Vedavati saw, he insulted her. So she set herself afire and said before she departed, in my next life, I will destroy you. So after she immolated her body, immolated means she burned her body in a fire, it is said that Ravana took her ashes with him back to Lanka. He kept her ashes in a gold box in his palace. However, soon after this, he saw many inauspicious omens in Lanka. Narada Rishi, on a visit to Lanka, informed Ravana that the cause of the ill omens was the presence of Vedavati's ashes. The demon then had the ashes thrown into the ocean. But the box containing the ashes was carried by the ocean and deposited on the seashore near Mithila. It went into the earth, and it was at that place that Janaka performed a sacrifice for getting a child. As part of the sacrifice, part of his sacrifice was furrowing the earth, and he found the box. Lakshmi had entered the ashes, and when Janaka unearthed the box, he found the golden child inside and named her Sita. That's Devi Bhagavad. I never heard that one before.
Yeah, me too.
That's like pretty interesting. So now we're going to directly read from Valmiki Ramayana, where what happened after that. So that was Devi Bhagavad. But so after Vedavati had entered the fire, Ravana mounted the flying palace Pushpaka and roamed the earth. So he's going to go to the heavenly planets, but he's now on the earthly planet. The Rakshasa spied King Maruta, who was offering a sacrifice together with gods. The Rishi, Samvarta by name, the brother of Brahaspati, and a knower of righteousness, officiated the sacrifice, surrounded by all the hosts of Brahmanas. But when the Devatas who had come for that sacrifice saw the invincible Rakshasa, because they knew about this boon from Brahma, they took themselves to the wombs of various creatures, terrified that he would attack them. Indra became a peacock, Yamaraj, the king of righteousness, a crow. And it goes on. They took different forms. Approaching the king, Ravana, lord of the Rakshasas, said, "You must either offer me battle or acknowledge defeat." King Maruta replied, "Sir, who are you?" To this, the Rakshasa laughed derisively and said, "I am amused by how unimpressed you are, your majesty, in that you do not seem to grasp that I am Ravana, the younger brother of Kuvera, the bestower of wealth. For who in the three worlds does not know my strength, whereby I defeated my brother and seized this flying palace?" Then Maruta said to the Rakshasa, "What a splendid fellow you are, sir, to have defeated your own elder brother in battle." Did you perform some perfect act of righteousness in the past, such that you received a boon? The sort of thing you yourself boast of is something I've never heard of before. Then the king, seizing his bow and arrows in a rage, set out for battle. But some Varta blocked his path. That's his priest, the son of Brihaspati. The great Rishi spoke affectionately to the king. If you want my advice, battle is not appropriate for you. If left incomplete, this sacrifice, dedicated to Maheshwara, would consume your dynasty. And how can one who is consecrated for sacrifice engage in battle? How can there be violence on the part of one who is so consecrated? Moreover, battle is always uncertain, and this Rakshasa is invincible. So on the advice of his guru, Maruta, who was at that time ruling the whole earth, put aside his bow and arrows and returned to the sacrifice. So Ravana now considered Maruta as defeated. Ravana is victorious, he roared with delight. And then what did Ravana do? The rishis that were seated around the sacrificial area, he killed them, ate them, and began to roam the earth. Not a nice man. So he's on this conquest to challenge everybody, defeat everybody in the three worlds. And there's like pages of commentary. Once Ravana had gone, the Devatas resumed their natural forms and addressed those creatures whose forms they had taken. And they speak to them. There's a whole long section. Yamaraj says to the crow, "O bird, I am pleased with you. Now hear my words of gratitude. Since I am pleased, those various ailments which I afflict other creatures with shall have no power over you. Through my boon, you shall have no fear of death. Indeed, as long as men do not kill you, you shall live forever." And so on. So they're giving benedictions to those entities. When the sacrificial ceremony was completed, the gods, having granted these boons to those creatures, returned to their respective abodes together with the king. After defeating Maruta, the 10-faced Ravana, spoiling for battle, proceeded to capitals of other kings on earth, such as Dushyanta, Surata, Gadi, Gaya, and King Pururavas. We heard about Gadi, right? Gadi is the father of Vishwamitra. And he's, just third in line from Brahma. So there's all this detailed description of who these personalities are. The Lord of the Rakshasas said to those kings, whose strength was equal to that of the great Indra and Varuna, saying, "You must either give me battle or declare yourselves vanquished. This is my resolve. There will be no escape for those of you who act otherwise." And the wise kings all said, "We are vanquished." Sarga 20. Then the Lord of the Rakshasas continued terrorizing the people of the earth. He encountered Narada, perched on the back of a cloud. Narada, of immense blazing energy and immeasurable splendor, addressed Ravana. So he's going to say, Why are you bothering with people on earth? By the very nature of being born on earth, they're an illusion, and they're going to soon die. And what's the big credit to you? Yes, these kings are powerful and everything, but you need to find suitable opponent. Addressed in this fashion, the Lord of Lanka, blazing with splendor, respectfully saluted Narad and smiled, saying to him, "O great Rishi, you who take your pleasure among the gods and Gandharvas, and are so fond of battle, I am indeed preparing to go to the underworld, Rasathala, in search of victory. Then, once I have subjugated the three worlds and brought the great serpents and gods under my control, I shall churn the ocean, the receptacle of every essence, for the nectar of immortality." So Narada replies, "So, where then are you going now by this path, O tormentor of foes? This path is very difficult and impassable. It leads to the city of Yama, the king of the ancestors." Ravana burst out laughing and said, "I've already accomplished that." Therefore, great Brahmana, resolved as I am to slay Vaivasvata, that's Manu, I shall proceed to the south, where that king, the son of Surya, dwells. Eager for battle, O blessed Lord, I vow in my fury, I shall conquer the four guardians of the world. Therefore, I shall set out for the city of the king of the ancestors, that's Manu, and I shall put that tormentor of living beings to death. When Dasagriva had spoken in this fashion, he respectfully saluted the sage and set out for the southern region, accompanied by his excited counselors. So he's going to go to the abode of Yamaraj. When Narada, the foremost of Brahmins, had reflected in this fashion, he went swiftly to Yama's abode in order to report what had transpired. There he saw the god, Yamaraj, who, attended by Agni, was dealing out appropriate fates to living beings. When Yamaraj saw the great sage Narada, he offered him, in keeping with righteousness, a comfortable seat and the guest offering, and then said, "I trust all is well, great Rishi, and I trust righteousness has not been violated. What, O you upon whom the gods and Gandharvas attend, is the purpose of your coming?" Narada explained, "Listen, I will tell you. Then you must take the necessary steps, O king of the ancestors. The Rakshasa, known as Dashagriva, is coming here in order to subjugate, through his valor, you who are impossible to vanquish. It is for this reason that I have come in haste, O my lord." Pretty intriguing, huh? Going to go try to kill the Lord of Death. He can do this to you. Oops. What can he do this day to you with weapons whose weapon is a rod? That's death. At that very moment, Narada spied the divine flying palace of the Rakshasa approaching from afar. It resembled the rising, many-rayed sun. the immensely powerful Rakshasa drew near, dispelling the darkness of the whole region through the radiance of the Pushpaka on every side. The great armed Dasagriva saw living beings experiencing the consequences of their evil deeds. Then, through his valor, mighty Ravana forcibly freed those who were being tormented because of their evil deeds. As the departed spirits were being liberated by the immensely powerful Rakshasa, their guards were enraged and attacked the lord of the Rakshasas. In their hundreds of thousands, those heroes sent a hail of darts, iron beams, lances, war hammers, javelins, and iron cudgels against the Pushpaka. Swarming like bees, they swiftly battered the seats, terraces, raised platforms, and gateways of the Pushpaka. But since the Pushpaka flying palace was an abode of divinity, it remained indestructible through the blazing splendor of Brahma, even as it was being battered in battle. Then Ravana's mighty counselors fought with all their will and all their strength, as did the 10-faced king himself. Their bodies smeared with blood, wounded by every sort of weapon, the counselors of the Rakshasa Lord fought a great battle. And those illustrious warriors, Yamaraja's great host and the Rakshasa counselors, struck at one another with weapons in battle. By turning away from the Rakshasas' counselors, those exceedingly mighty warriors assailed 10-faced Ravana himself with a hail of lances. Then, grievously wounded with weapons, his body smeared with blood, the foremost of the Rakshasas in his flying palace resembled an ashok tree in bloom. I guess ashok flowers are red. Maybe. However, as he was a master of divine weapons, spells that mighty warriors released, lances, maces, darts, etc., etc., but having repulsed them all and rendered futile his divine weapons, they in their hundreds and thousands belabored the fearsome Rakshasa, who was alone. They all surrounded him in as a mass of clouds might a mountain. And with their short javelins and lances, they knocked the wind out of him. Whoa! Drenched with blood, his armor gone, he left the Pushpaka in rage and took his stand on the ground. Then, after a moment, the enraged overlord of the Rakshasa cleared his mind and, armed with bows and arrows, took up his stand on the ground like Yamaraj himself, the ender of all things. Connecting to his bow and arrow charged with the divine weapon spell of Pashupati, he drew that bow, crying out to them, "Stand, stand!" Garlanded with flames and followed by flesh-eating beasts. That arrow, released in battle, sped along, reducing thickets and trees to ashes. Consumed by its blazing energy, the warriors of Vivasvata fell in battle like trees consumed by a forest fire. Then, together with his ministers, that Rakshasa of fearful valor roared a mighty roar, causing the earth to tremble. The end of the 21st Sarga of Uttarakhanda in 22. Now, where it's going to end up is Yamaraj is going to check killing him because a boon was given by Brahma that he could not be killed by a demigod. And Yamaraj is a demigod, so he'd be transgressing the boon of Brahma. So he put his rod away, and Ravana felt he was victorious. But there's, the the bloody battle scene which little boys always like. When Yama Vivasvata heard Dasagriva's mighty roar, he realized that his enemy had been victorious and that his own army had been destroyed. Realizing that his warriors had been slain, his eyes wild with rage, he quickly said to his charioteer, "Bring up my chariot." Loudly the chariot rumbled, and then he, of immense blazing energy, mounted that great chariot and took his stand. Standing before him, wielding a noose and a war hammer, was Mrityu, who destroys the entire three worlds with its fixed and moving contents. And beside him in the chariot stood Yama's divine weapon, the rod of Kala, capital K, in human form, glowing with blazing energy. Then the three worlds and the gods, denizens of heaven, seeing that Kala, the terror of the three worlds, was enraged. The gods were afraid and trembled. When the ministers of that foremost Rakshasa saw the fearsome chariot, terrifying to all the worlds, with Mrityu mounted upon it, they were stricken with fear, their minds reeling because their inferior strength. They cried, "We are unable to fight here," and they all fled. Even when the Rakshasa saw such a chariot, a terror to the worlds, he was not disturbed, nor did he suffer any anxiety. Now, having confronted Ravana, Yama, in towering rage, hurled javelins and warhammers, piercing the Rakshas's vital points. But Ravana remained uninjured and unleashed a hail of arrows on Vivasvata's chariot, as might a storm cloud, a torrent of rain. Then, you like the battle scene? You like it? Little boys, I mean, you're a little boy. So boys like battle scenes. Here we go. Because of the hundreds of huge javelins that cascaded down upon his chest, the Rakshasa, afflicted by those sharp weapons, was unable to retaliate. Although Yama, the dagger of his foes, gave battle in this fashion with all manner of weapons for 7 nights, Ravana was neither broken nor vanquished. Then there broke out a renewed battle between Yamaraj and the Rakshasa, both eager for victory and never turning back in battle. It goes on, it's like big battle. Then one struck another. Now, Mrityu, in a towering rage, addressed Vivasvata, "Give me leave at once, and I will slay your enemy in battle." Naming the names of who he has assailed in battle. They were slain the moment I saw them. So why worry about this, Rakshasa? Give me leave straight away, knower of righteousness, so that I may kill him. For no one upon whom I gaze can survive, even for an instant. Nor is this any power of mine, rather it is the law fixed by nature. For no one touched by me can survive, that is certain. When the valorous king of righteousness heard these words, he said to Mrityu, "I will kill him myself." Then his eyes reddened. The enraged Lord Vivasvata hefted the unfailing rod of Kala, and every side of it standing crowded closely together were the nooses of Kala, and standing there too in human form was his warhammer, very touch of which was like fire. Merely upon being seen, that rod cuts off the lives of living beings. How much more so would it take the lives of embodied beings through a blow or through its crushing weight, touched by the hand of that mighty divinity. That angry and very fearsome rod was wreathed in flames as if to consume the Rakshasa. Then all creatures fled the battlefield, while the god, seeing Yama with the upraised rod of Kala, became agitated. But just as Yama, eager to strike Ravana, raised his rod, grandfather Brahma himself appeared and said, "Oh, great-armed Vaivasvata, you of incomparable valor, you must not strike this Rakshasa with your rod, for I gave him a boon. You must not falsify the words that I have spoken, and it was I who long ago created this rod of Kala to be unfailing in the destruction of all creatures, and in whose wake Mrityu follows. Therefore, gentle sir, you must not let it fall upon the Rakshsa's head, for once it falls, no one can survive for even an instant. For if it falls, whether the Rakshasa Dasagriva lives or dies, in either case, there would be a falsehood. Therefore, you must hold back from that Lord of the Rakshasas, this rod, held high for destruction. Have some regard for the worlds, and make my words truthful." When righteous Yama had been addressed in this fashion, he replied, "The rod has been withdrawn, for you are our sovereign Lord. But now what can I do here on the battlefield, since I am unable to kill the Rakshasa, so arrogant by virtue of his boon? Therefore I shall vanish from the sight of this Rakshasa." Having spoken in this fashion, he disappeared on the spot, along with his chariot and horses. Having vanished, Dasagriva in delight loudly proclaimed his own name, and then in Pushpaka departed from Yama's abode. Delighted, Vaivasvata, together with the gods, headed by Brahma, went to the highest heaven, as did the great sage Narada. That's the end of that sarga. Now we have just a little bit left. I hope you don't mind just hearing. I could summarize, but it's like hard to summarize this. Boastful of his victory after vanquishing Yama, the bull among the 30 gods, Ravana, Dasagriva, spied his companions, praising him with shouts of victory. Maricha and the others all entered the Pushpaka, where they were reassured by Ravana. Then, in delight, he proceeded toward Rasatala and plunged into the repository of water, the ocean, which was inhabited by Daityas and great serpents, and was protected by Varuna. Moving on to the city of Bhogavati, ruled by Vasuki, he brought the great serpents under his power and established them there. Then proceeded to the city of Manimati. What's Manimati? The Yakshas. The Nivatakavacha Daityas, who have attained a boon, dwelt there. Encountering them, the Rakshasa challenged them to battle. Those sons of Diti there were all very valorous, endowed with strength, and equipped with all kinds of weapons. They were intoxicated with battle and fought fiercely. Well, guess who won? Brahma called the halt to the fighting, and the eternal grandfather Brahma spoke these words: "Surely it is impossible for the gods and asuras to defeat Ravana in battle, nor is it possible for the gods and asuras together with Indra to vanquish you gentlemen. An alliance between you and the Rakshasas would find favor with me. All the good things are shared equally among friends. Of this there is no doubt. And so, then and there, Ravana concluded an alliance, witnessed by Agni, with the Nivata Kavachas. He was greatly pleased. Duly honored by them, 10-faced Ravana dwelled there happily for a year. And he received as much homage as he did in his own city. With a disciplined mind, he acquired 99 powers of illusion. Then he wandered throughout Rasatala in search of Varuna. Then, having in short time conquered the city of Ashmanagara, which was protected by Kalakeyas, he slew 400 Daityas. At length, the Lord of the Rakshasas spied the heavenly abode of Varuna. It resembled a white cloud and established as firmly as Mount Kailash. This is apparently where Nanda Maharaj was taken, the abode of Varuna, in this lower region. Remember, with this Nagas and everything? He saw standing there the cow, Surabhi, who was constantly pouring forth milk, and from whose flow of milk the ocean called the ocean of milk comes into being. It is out of that ocean that the cool rayed moon, beneficial to all creatures, arises, and resorting to which the supreme rishis subsist by drinking its foam. It is there that the nectar of immortality was produced, as well as the wine of the gods. When Ravana had reverently circumambulated that supremely wonderful cow, whom people in the world refer to by the name Surabhi, he entered that extremely formidable city, guarded by troops of many kinds. Then he saw Varuna. He challenged him to battle. The sons and grandsons of Varuna marched forth, and endowed with might and with every virtue, and surrounded by their troops, they yoked their chariots. Big battle between Ravana and the sons of Varuna. But the immensely powerful ministers of the Rakshasa Dasagriva instantly cut down the entire army of Varuna. When Varuna's sons saw that their own forces were cut down, they withdrew from combat, harried by a hail of arrows. This is the last page. They had been on the ground, but when they spied Ravana in the Pushpaka, they quickly flew up into the sky on their swift-moving chariots. Now that they reached the same elevation, there broke out between them big battle. Then, with arrows like fire, they forced Ravana to turn his back in battle, and in great delight they roared, "Victory!" Seeing the king assaulted, the heroic Mahodara, one of his soldiers, was furious. With his mace, Mahodara struck down their horses, etc., etc. Struck down by Mahodara, their chariots and horses, together with their excellent charioteers, fell to the surface of the earth. But although they were bereft of their chariots, the heroic sons of great Varuna were not shaken, and through their innate power they remained in the sky, stringing their bows. We only have a half a page. The battle's got to end pretty soon. Stringing their bows and piercing Mahodara, they altogether charged at Ravana in their rage. Then, enraged, Dasagriva, standing there like fire of Kala, let fall upon their vital spots an immensely powerful hail of arrows, Standing firm and unassailable, he sent crashing down upon them various kinds of clubs, etc., etc. Then, wounded, the heroic foot soldiers fled. Releasing a mighty roar, the Rakshasa battered the sons of Varuna with all kinds of fearsome weapons, etc. Then, turning away, they all fell to the ground, and their attendants quickly took them from the battlefield to their homes. The Rakshasa then told them, "Let Varuna be informed." And Varuna's counselor, Prabhasa by name, said to Ravana, "The Lord of the waters, Varuna, of immense blazing energy, whom you are challenging to battle, has gone to Brahmaloka to hear a musical recital. Therefore, hero, since the king is away, why do you exhaust yourself to no purpose? You have already defeated the heroic princes who are here." When he heard this, the Lord of the Rakshasas loudly proclaimed his own name. Releasing a roar to his delight, he set forth from Varuna's realm, returning by the path from which he came. The Rakshasa, rising in the sky, turned his face toward Lanka and proceeded on his way. So that's the end of the section. This is, just an introduction to the personality. When he got his powers, he wanted to be he wanted to be God. He wanted to be the ruler of everything. It's not just like the king of heaven. He wanted to be the ruler of everything. Because he was an atheist, who's the ruler of everything? There's a person over here and over there and over there. I'll defeat them and I'll be the ruler of everything. I'm God. That was one of his reasons, according to what we heard about Kara, Dushan, and Trishiras. They just liked eating sages, but he was against the sages doing sacrifice to the gods because they might get powers from the gods that would rival his. So that's why he stopped the sacrifice, and instead he wanted them to perform the sacrifice for him. Like, I'm God. I'm greater than the gods and greater than Vishnu, because as far as he was concerned, he's just one of the gods. And I'm powerful than everybody, more powerful than everybody. He's way up there in the demoniac nature, divine and demoniac nature chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Very matured stage of demoniac. But as we heard, who was Ravana before he was Ravana?
Jai Vijay.
In between. Jai and Vijay the first time around? Hiranyakashipu. And Hiranyaksha. Hiranyaksha became Kumbhakarna, and Hiranyakashipu became Ravana. There's this nice description in part of this tour that Ravana was making. When he heard that Ram was going to come, he thought he should better to get some allies. So he started considering who would be a good ally. He thought Bali Maharaj, because Bali Maharaj was also able to defeat all the gods. So he went to the abode of Bali. And Vamana was at the gate and said, "No way, you can't come in." But Bali permitted, he can come in. So he came in. And he said, "I want your help." He said, "Well, tell you what. You see that big mountain of gold? You can lift that big mountain of gold, I'll help you." So he went to lift the big mountain of gold. He couldn't lift it. He couldn't lift it. He couldn't lift it. And he said, "That mountain of gold is one of Hiranyakashipu's earrings. In your previous life, you were Hiranyakashipu. And Lord Vishnu slayed Hiranyakashipu, and see how powerful was Hiranyakashipu? See how big was Hiranyakashipu? That's his earring, that mountain of gold you can't pick up. So you got a tough plan. Yeah, I advise you to give back Sita. And not fight with Ram, because you'll be destroyed. So he left. Vali didn't have to say no. He didn't have to say yes. He just let him know he's going to be defeated. Because Vali, although he is in the Daitya clan, he's a devotee.
Yes.
He's an exalted devotee. So he's not going to oppose Ram. Forget it. He's a devotee. One other, there's a whole section that we didn't discuss, but it's 130, 135. The Vali, the brother of Sugriva, Vali, was more powerful than Ravan. You know that story? Yeah, he was on this tour, conquering everybody, and he heard how powerful was Vali. So he went to Kishkinda. And Vali wasn't there at the time. So Tara's father came to receive him and said, you're making a mistake. Don't mess with Vali. But if you really want to see him, right, you're just going to have to wait for a bit right now, because he's out going to the four directions, taking his sacred bath in the four directions. But if you want, you can go look for him in the four directions. So he went to the four directions and he saw Vali. He went to the southernmost part of the subcontinent of India, Bharsha, and he saw Vali and he started charging. Vali saw him coming from behind. He didn't even pay attention to him. He just grabbed him and tucked him under his arm as he was completing his duties there in the sea. And Ravana is squirming, and he went to the next place, and still under his arm. He says armpit. And then he set Ravana down and said, sorry, I was busy. What is it that you would like? By then, Ravana realized, I'm not going to be able to defeat him. So he decided instead, let me make an alliance with Vali. So some kind of formal little alliance. But Vali, so he was defeatable, even by Vali, and perhaps also Bali Maharaj, because empowered by the personality of Godhead, Bali Maharaj. But he wouldn't take Ravana's side, nor would he just didn't want to have anything to do with him. And ultimately, like with Yamaraj, the rod of Kala is going to destroy everybody, including Ravana, including everybody. The body is going to be destroyed. So when the body is destroyed, then what? Then depends on one's consciousness and good deeds, bad deeds, and your guna and your karma, and that's where you go. But supposing guna and karma are dissolved, then you go to the eternal abode. But that's not where Ravana went. Now, and last point. There's this interesting purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita that describes specifically that only when Krishna killed Shishupal and Dantavakra did they return to the spiritual world. So the question that I had is, there's a big gap of time between Satyuga, Treta Yuga, and Dwapara Yuga. So where did they go? When they were killed by Hiranyakashipu was killed by Lord Nrsimhadev, where did he go? He must have gone somewhere. And the only answer I got back is, there's nothing in scripture to tell us where they went. So don't ask me where they went, because I already tried to find out where they went. And they went somewhere. Do you know where they went? No, me either. But we know where they didn't go. They didn't go back to Godhead. Although their sins were eliminated by being killed by the Supreme Lord, they didn't go to the spiritual world. Now, in some cases, Putana and others went to the spiritual world, but that's killed by Krishna. So, those on the Kurukshetra battle field, they attained their spiritual forms. It's described specifically, but not these three, until they were killed by Krishna. Any, I hope you didn't mind hearing, just reading at a bloody battle. Yeah.
Yes.
How is
Sorry.
You have to go further from the
Speaker.
speaker.
what category is Vali considered? Like, because he did seem to have.
He was born in a Daitya family, but he's an Uttama Bhagavat. That's the category.
Okay.
And Vamana demonstrated it.
No, not Bali Maharaj. Vali.
Vali. What was the category?
Like, because towards the end, Ram kind of explains him what his mistakes were, and he seemed to have asked for forgiveness.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, so your question is, what is his category? Where is his destination? Or
Both. Like, is he considered to be like a soul who lost through and then eventually surrendered, or he still continues to be like an asura and gets liberated because he saw Ram?
well, being killed by Ram, as he was killed by Ram, means the reactions of his past misdeeds were wiped away. Now, inclination is another thing. Tendency is something else. And, I'm unaware of any description of where he went. He was freed from the reactions of his deeds, even if he didn't, like, gee, I'm sorry, because he vilified Ram. And then Ram corrected him. And he accepted, I stand corrected. And Ram performed, Ram had his brother perform his funeral. So, destination? How do we know any of these things except from scripture or the commentaries of our acharyas? And I'm unaware of any statement where he went. But he was absolved of his past misdeeds by being killed by Ram. Okay?
I have a question.
Okay, here's the microphone.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I have two questions. One is when Ravan was defeating everyone, at that time he did not go to the Bali Maharaj's place.
It's not described in the section that I read. Elsewhere it's described.
That he went there?
He went there. You heard I described. Vali Maharaj, he went to his abode.
But that time he went to get the alliance. But when he was defeating all the Daityas and everyone, that time he didn't go and challenge.
I don't know what time he went, but he went.
Okay. The other question I have, Maharaj, is that Ravan had the boon from Brahmaji that he cannot be defeated by anyone.
I'm listening.
Then how come Vali was able to defeat him?
He couldn't be killed. Defeat is one thing. Okay.
I have a question. Hare Krishna. Why didn't
Try it again.
I think you have to switch it on again. When something happens. Just keep pressing again.
why didn't Ram like take Sita when it was night? Because that would be so much easier than just going through all the fights.
Why don't you just go get Sita and done with it instead of all this fighting? That's
Yeah.
your question?
Yeah.
Well, up at this stage, Sita hasn't been kidnapped yet. But so two reasons. You ready? You paying attention?
Go ahead.
Ah, good. Two reasons. One, Ram was giving some service to his devotees. He could do it himself, no problem. He was giving some service to his devotees. And turn it a different direction, maybe?
Is it because of
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I can tell now.
Is it on?
It's on. Hare Krishna. Okay.
Okay, no, that's okay. She's done. She's done. So,
Don't know, Krishna. Just reduce the volume.
let's just set it down. Just set it down.
Set it down.
No, I forgot the question.
One of the reasons you said was he wanted to give service
Yes,
to his...
and the other is you with me? The other reason is enhancing love through the mood of separation. And destroying the whole Rakshasa race. Because the person that did the kidnapping was Ravan. So by Dharma, Ravan is to be killed, not everybody.
Right.
But when they brought the entire army, because, it's, etc., then there was a big battle and everybody was killed. And the Vanaras that were killed, they were brought back to life. Ram had the capacity. So it was a purpose for his appearance. And then Vibhishan became the next king, and so he was able to rule a place that didn't have so many Rakshasas running around. Restore righteousness. Okay. Anything else? Online? We have some?
Yes, no, but yeah, for Valmiki's class, yesterday's class, last evening's class,
Yeah.
um,
There's some questions from that.
yes,
Okay.
it's one question.
One question. Okay. I'm looking at my watch. Go ahead, speak.
I'll speak. So I don't know whether this question was addressed yesterday. Why should the hunter be cursed? That is, after all, his duty to take care of himself by hunting. Any significance of this hunter here in this incident?
First of all, the hunter wasn't cursed. The hunter was responsible for his karma. And we discussed this. That is, I gave the example, supposing someone is a butcher Well, it's my occupation. I'm a butcher. Is there no karmic responsibility
No.
for, it's my occupation. I'm a thief. It's how I make my living. Don't call me a bad person. It's my occupation. I steal. I murder, and I plunder people, and so that's what he was doing. He was plundering and murdering. So he that wasn't cursed. He's responsible. That was what the topic was. So next question.
I think this is the hunter who separated the two crane birds. He was cursed by
Oh, that one.
Different Ramayana.
Well, it was he lamented afterwards. Now, that question was asked by Amara, I believe, and I referred her to Vidvan Garanga's Balakanda 3-volume set, which I'm sure has pages and pages and pages of what was significance of those words. Because that's what happened in those words. He was cursed. So what happened to him actually, I don't know. Why were those words spoken? It's right in that section of the acharyas commenting on it. And I can't remember that there's some general things that this is the theme and the mood of Ramayana. That is, someone that does unrighteousness will be disturbed. And those that act righteously will be relieved of that tendency. I mean, I'm sure there's much more, but I refer the person who's asking this question to that section of Balakanda.
There is a second part to this question. After seeing one of the bird killed, Valmiki has shown compassion on the birds and anger in the form of a curse onto the hunter.
That was deranged. Go ahead.
For the sinful activity performed by the hunter, anyway, he is going to suffer for his heinous activity.
Yes.
But for the self-realized personality like sage Valmiki,
Yes.
how is this possible not to be compassionate on the hunter instead of...
He was astonished himself as our person asking this question. What? How did that happen? This is not becoming a sage. I shouldn't speak like this. Where'd that come from? It was arranged so that he could then have a meter and compose from Ramayana and have a theme. And so read that section, same answer. We're done. Online questions for today? None. Anything from you? You're good. Okay.
I had a quick question on the reference, that you're using, Maharaj. Is that directly from Valmiki Ramayana, or is that a book, or in case because the way you're reading it, it's amazing. Like the last couple of days, I've been like just hearing you read, and thank you so much for that. It's just been an amazing experience the past.
My understanding is that the second part of what I read today is straight from Valmiki Ramayana, Sarga this one, Sarga that one, Sarga the other one. And the earlier part is Devi Bhagavad, as I gave, what the source is. And at other times, it's other sources. There's multiple sources. Mainly Valmiki Ramayana, but also multiple sources. Especially when I was speaking about Vishwamitra Muni, because I wanted to make the point that there are various Ramayanas, and those various Ramayanas have different descriptions of different things. Just keeping it really simple, right in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 19, with Hanuman's prayers, there's, in Prabhupada's purport, there's references of 2 different sets of Ram is this one, Ram is that one. And Vishwanath, Prabhupada citing Vishwanath saying it's different yuga cycles. So, wait a minute. But it's different yuga cycles. So, and it's quite okay. And we don't have the qualification to determine, is this a different Yuga cycle incident, or is this like, something that should be rejected because it's that, and answer your question?
Yeah. I just wanted to get some reference for reading further, in case.
They'll make you remind. But then to get a really, I know some devotees that read it in Sanskrit. I know some devotees that read it in Hindi. And then to read it in English, good luck. Because many of the translations, it's Old English and it's really cumbersome. So now the Krishna Dharma BBT publication, not a BBT publication, is it a BBT publication? It's whoever's the publisher. He states specifically in the preface that most it's Valmiki, but there's some other Ramayanas blended in it. So, what criterion did he use? I don't know. But this Vidvan Garanga source, I trust it. He's very, knowing the person and how he has written. It's got, he's a very loyal follower of Prabhupada. I trust his so it's word for word translation, just like Prabhupada has done. And he explains why he chose these words instead of those words for translation, following our Acharya's commentaries. Primarily the Sri Vaishnava Acharyas, but others, because there are other references. Just like this, in Rupa Goswami's Laghu Bhagavatamrita, we were discussing this question of where is the scriptural reference for Ayodhya being at the topmost region of Haridam. Did you hear that discussion? No. But you're aware that that's our view.
Yes.
So where's the scriptural reference for that? So somebody did some online research and came up with something. And that section is references made in Rupa Goswami's Laghu Bhagavatamrita. But it's not the same as our Gaudiya Vaishnava understanding, but Rupa Goswami is referring to that. So we can trust that reference because Rupa Goswami is making that reference. But you get something online, it's got a different picture. Because I read that reference, there's a whole long thing, and the whole long thing says something different. It speaks of Ayodhya being in Mahavaikuntha, and then there's Vaikuntha. So it's kind of like, that's Goloka Vrindavan, and then there's Haridam. That's kind of what the inference is from that. But Rupa Goswami is taking something from there, and he's the Paramahamsa that can take gold from anywhere. One has to be very careful, not just read a lot. One has to be very careful of the source, which is what you're asking. And there are multiple sources that our acharyas refer to, other than Valmiki Ramayana.
Guru Maharaj, one quick doubt. When you were reading, I heard alternatively.
Yes, I don't have the answer to that. I'll ask and find out.
Okay.
Sometimes Yamaraj,
Sometimes
Vaivasvata, and then one place it's Vaivasvata Yama. So I don't have the answer, but I'll ask. The person that provided this English translation from Valmiki Ramayana, I'll ask, what's that all about? And I'll let you know, and then you can let the other listeners know. Yeah.
Guru Maharaj, I think the question may be stupid, but I thought let me ask Guru Maharaj.
All right, go ahead.
So, Guru Maharaj, day before yesterday, or I think yesterday you were speaking about Hanumanji hitting his chest for we
Yes.
reached at that story.
Yes.
So there was a question in my mind to understand Hanuman's mood, like why he was not able to see Ram or Sita in that pearl, because that was given by Sita. So why he was not able to see in that and he was able
You have
to
to
see
ask
in
Hanuman.
I said Guru Maharaj, I'm asking stupid questions.
Why didn't he see Hanuman ready to see Ram everywhere?
Yeah.
And if he did, since he didn't see Ram in the pearl, why did he chew,
Yeah.
you know, the table? You know, you can start going.
Yes.
Pastime.
Pastimes.
Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
His Holiness Srila Ramapal Swami Maharaj ki
Jai.